For the rest of the cast that we assembled, we got a lot of amazing people that really devoted their time to bringing light to these characters. Troy Sill playing Principal Thompson was just an amazing find. We were looking for actually an actor that resembled my actual principal from that period, because I saw Thompson as kind of a wannabe politician, somebody who was always putting the needs of the school and its image first before the needs of the actual students.
Thompson represents bureaucrats across the country who are committed in so many instances to maintaining the status quo, who want problems not to exist, who look at the bottom line instead of human beings.
So for him, a kid like TK is someone who I think, in his view, is just a state quota. Just to say, oh yes, we have diversity, we have Black students, we have Latinos, we accept everybody here. But the minute there's a problem, that kid's expendable, and we'll just get somebody else from their district who's begging to come here. That's his attitude. And just to kind of keep everything secret under the rug. And of course, when Vance decides to take a stand, he can't accept that, and he doesn't want to listen. And I think Troy, with his theatrical background, brought something to it where, I had to really get him to a level where, yes, this is kind of a theatrical guy who, basically runs the school with an iron fist, but he's also somebody that he gets deeply disturbed if an accusation can bring down the cards of what he's built in his school administration.
I am a teacher in my personal life, and I have been heavily involved in the union, the teaching union, for 19 years. And I know these guys. I know these guys very well. So it was really just a matter of picturing any number of administrators that I've worked with, some worse than others, and just sort of tapping into what is often out there, unfortunately.
Oliver Feaster playing TK was maybe one of the most challenging castings that I ever had to do, because the character was based on me, as well as a number of the students that I read stories about who went through similar incidents like I did. And going through it, I knew I needed somebody who was sympathetic, who was middle of the road, and somebody that wasn't always so conscious about their race, but you really feel their pain when you're watching that kid. Out of everybody that I saw, it wasn't just that Oliver and I resemble each other. To me, it was watching him read the scene when he's being confronted by the guidance counselor and reading his eyes and reading that kind of like, I didn't do this, I'm innocent, why would anybody want to do this to me? I think Oliver really demonstrated a great deal of vulnerability and not having to say a whole lot, but letting his expressions tell you everything you need to know about the pain and the trauma that this kid has to deal with, and being pushed to the edge of his own mental state.
So my preparation, luckily I was able to speak with you, Andre, who is loosely based off of the story. You were very open with me about what happened with you when you went to school. So that kind of research really helped me. That personal research helped me to prepare for this role.
And he's just such a talented kid, and we had a lot of deep conversations through Zoom about what I went through and what I experienced. And in particular, when we shot the scene where he's being cyberbullied and looking at all these hate comments, I sat down with him and I told him, I want you to feel like you're being cut up with 1,000 razor blades, because that's exactly how I felt at different times in my life. And I think he delivered it so beautifully and so painfully that even I still get knots in my stomach just thinking about it. He's just amazing, and I really think that kid is awesome. Jay Pastelak playing the guidance counselor was somebody that I also knew was going to be an interesting character. A lot of actors who read for that part were trying to be kind of the suit and tie, kind of hardened, kind of public school guidance counselor. But I was looking for a guy that was a little bit more priest-like and very judgmental. And Jay is just a very chill guy who really, I mean, privately, you know, he was so disturbed by everything that happened to me and really like angry that all these things went down.
I was bullied a little bit as a kid. One of the reasons why I wanted to be an actor was I was bullied on the playground in first grade, and I said, oh, I'm going to be famous and these guys won't be. And they'll see me on TV. I'll have some great program like Everglades, which was a hot series back in 1960. And they'll be racked with grief, and I'll be, you know, I was 6 years old. What do you get?
But what he brought to it was a guy who is just more than willing to cover things up for the sake of being the guidance counselor of the school, and almost like the real second in command to Thompson. And I think that, you know, even adding the drinking element, which is also another factor to his character, only shows that for a guy that's been in this school for very long, he really has to take the edge off every day, and I think that affects his judgment greatly. So, you know, could there be an underlying sense of racism with him? Maybe. But I think we definitely portray it in such a manner that he is very ignorant of his own bias. Kat Walsh, playing the vice principal, Simonson, was a student of Lisa Regina's, and we were supposed to work with her on a different project previously. And when I spoke to her about Simonson, I saw a vice principal who was sort of middle of the road, who was friends with Vance, and basically like the kind of vice principal that not necessarily has the ambition of being principal one day, but just, you know, is happy with her job, may have been to the school for a long time as a student before she became an administrator, and is always kind of in denial of her age and just wanting to be hip and cool with the students and running the dance events. But of course, she falls in line like everybody else, and because she just doesn't want any trouble for herself or for the school.
I'm a very nurturing person, and so I tried to bring as much of that as I could to the character.
Isaiah Fairclough, playing the bully Larry, he was a composite of a number of guys that I went to school with that I had problems with, and not always necessarily bullies, but just complete jerks to have to deal with in my classes. And Larry, to me, is almost like the sad case of somebody that really tries so hard to impress everybody, the girls, his friends, you know, the athletic department. And basically, he's very jealous of TK to the point where he pulls these pranks to humiliate him in front of his ex-girlfriend that TK has interest in. But he's also the kind of guy that you just kind of wonder how far would he take it to try to bring this kid down and to try to humiliate him.
It was mainly like pulling from people I personally know and kind of like taking certain characteristics from, like, you know, the typical like bully, the typical jock. That's not who I am. I feel like that's kind of within everybody, and I feel like we all can touch into that.
Sarah Dolhansky. Let me tell you about Sarah. So when I was casting for this movie, actually even before we started casting, Lisa had given me a number of videos of some of the students that she was thinking about for the film, and Sarah was one of the students that she had who had done some acting classes with her, and she showed me some self-tapes of just random monologues that she did. And the minute that I saw her, I said, this girl is Chantel. Just that kind of blue-blooded, mean girl nature about herself. This is totally the actress that we need for this movie. But what I also find with Sarah is that as a person, she is such a deep soul, wisdom beyond her years, just incredible to work with and to talk to.
For me, you know, being a white woman, I come with a lot of privilege, and you know, throughout 2020 and 2021, with all these, you know, the Black Lives Matter movements and everything, I really learned a lot about my own privilege and how that affects, you know, my close friends who are Black and my close, you know, even family I have that are Black, and how I can better help them and everything. So for me, it was just a huge learning experience.
Kayla Minori, who plays Candace in the film, You know, we didn't really give her a lot of dialogue. She's more of like a visual presence than anything else. And of course, she's based on not one, but maybe a few girls that I went to school with that I had interest in. But I basically wanted somebody that was kind of ambiguous as a character, someone who clearly has a little bit of interest in TK, but then is also almost afraid to take another step because of how that might affect her image. So you begin to wonder with her, what's the deal? Where does she really stand? For the gym teacher, you know, I wanted to get somebody that was a little bit older, who kind of had sort of this, I don't know, kind of buddies up with the boys in the school, but is somebody that also keeps them at arm's length and may also be concerned of their own job and well-being. So when I was looking for a guy to play the gym teacher, it was funny, I was looking around. I remember one day I'm sitting with Chris Carula from my movie Dismissal Vendetta and the sequel Vendetta games, and I was telling you about this project, and you know, I said, yeah, the only role I'm still trying to cast is a gym teacher. He's like, well, I'm open to doing it. And I was like, really? You want to come out to Philadelphia and shoot these scenes? I'm like, yeah, I'll come out. So we had Chris for 2 days playing the gym teacher and having these interactions with Vance where basically he's almost given the intel on what's going on with TK and Candace and the feud with Larry, and then his own sense of insecurity of how far things could go if Vance gets too far to the truth.